Hello everyone, thank you for watching. My name is Evelyn, I'm from Belgium, and today I want to show you my Katharine Hepburn collection. I first got to know Kate when I watched The Aviator, in which she was portrayed by Cate Blanchett. I was immediately fascinated by this woman, and the first movie I watched shortly after was Bringing Up Baby. It was unlike anything I had ever seen before, and I started my collection shortly after. That was about 11 years ago. The main focus of my collection is on the 1940s, although I do have a lot of other stuff from other decades. In this video I want to show you a part of my collection. I can't show you everything, and I want to give you a brief overview of Kate's career in the 1940s and the early 1950s. If you're watching this, you probably know who Katharine Hepburn is. If not, here's a brief introduction to her life and career.
Katharine Hepburn was born over a century ago in Connecticut. Her birth date remained a secret for quite some time, but in her autobiography Me, she revealed she was born on May 12, 1907. Her parents were a big inspiration to her. Her father was a urologist and her mother a suffragette. Even as a child, Kate took an interest in theatre and film, but she went to college and graduated in 1928 with a degree in history and philosophy. She was bitten by the acting bug and began her career in plays on and off Broadway. In 1932, during a performance of The Warrior's Husband, she was noticed by a Hollywood talent scout. She asked for and got an unprecedented weekly salary from film studio RKO Radio Pictures, which offered her a contract. Her first movie, A Bill of Divorcement, launched her into stardom and was the start of a movie career that would last for more than 60 years and had a lot of ups and downs. During her film career, she made many memorable movies such as Little Women, Bringing Up Baby, The Philadelphia Story, The African Queen, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, and On Golden Pond. She acted among Hollywood's finest actors: Cary Grant, Henry Fonda, James Stewart, Burt Lancaster, Humphrey Bogart, and of course Spencer Tracy. During her life, Katharine Hepburn kept returning to the theatre. She starred in The Lake, Jane Eyre, and The Philadelphia Story, which was also a play before it was turned into a movie. In the 1950s, she took up the challenge of confronting the greatest playwright ever, William Shakespeare. She toured the US and Australia with plays such as You Like It, The Merchant of Venice, Measure for Measure, and Antony and Cleopatra. Katharine Hepburn stood up for women's rights her whole life. Her mother was a suffragette, and as a child she handed out balloons with votes for women. The image she created in her movies was that of an independent woman who didn't need a husband or children to make it in life. Her slacks, which she always wore, raised more than one eyebrow in Hollywood. Kate was not a fan of public events and Hollywood parties, but she wasn't averse to using her fame for something she believed in. Even though her support for presidential candidate Henry Wallace and the 1947 speech she gave condemning the House Un-American Activities Committee didn't do much for her career, she always stood up for the things she believed in. Katharine Hepburn passed away on the 29th of June 2003, but she continues to fascinate as an actress and as a personality. Since her death, she has been the subject of several books and different exhibitions have been set up in her memory. She was named the greatest American screen legend by the American Film Institute, and no actor has been able to match her record-breaking 4 Academy Awards for Best Actress.
Katharine Hepburn's career started in 1932, and she already won an Oscar for her third film, Morning Glory. Little Women and Alice Adams were very successful pictures, but by the end of the 30s her career took a dive and she was labeled box office poison. So she decided to terminate her contract with film studio RKO and to start anew.
The Philadelphia Story was written especially for Kate by her friend and playwright Philip Barry. The play was very successful and ran for 415 performances in 1939 and 1940. After Hepburn's departure from RKO Radio Pictures, The Philadelphia Story revitalized her career. Howard Hughes bought her the film rights, so the movie studios were obliged to engage her if they wanted to turn the play into a movie. MGM offered the best deal, and The Philadelphia Story was released in 1940. It earned 6 Oscar nominations, including one for Kate as Best Actress.
Philadelphia Story is one of my all-time favorites and a movie I can watch over and over again. I have this French poster, the Belgian poster, a few adverts and this iconic live cover. An interesting fact is that Kate had already wanted Spencer Tracy to star opposite her in Philadelphia Story. Next up is a movie that would change Kate's life and career. Let's move on to 1941.
The story of how Tracy and Hepburn met has become a legend in itself. Kate was wearing high heels and remarked, "I'm afraid I'm a little tall for you, Miss Tracy." Joseph Mankiewicz, the producer of Woman of the Year, who was accompanying Tracy, replied, "Don't worry, Kate, he'll soon cut you down to size." Woman of the Year was an instant hit, and Kate was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Actress, but lost out to Greer Garson.
You've arrived at the Tracy and Hepburn part of my collection. Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn made 9 films together over a course of 26 years. Their best known and most loved pictures are probably Woman of the Year and Adam's Rib. Their real-life relationship was kept a secret and didn't become public knowledge until the 1970s. Kate's relationship with Spencer did have an effect on her career. In the 1960s, for example, she took off work for 5 years to take care of Spencer. The last film they made together was Guess Who's Coming to Dinner in 1967. Unfortunately, Spencer died 2 weeks after shooting was done. Next up is my article and magazine collection. As you already saw in my video, I have a lot of magazines on display, but unfortunately I can't display everything. I have about 600 magazines, about 200 of them have Kate on the cover. So as you can see, all these drawers are filled with magazines and articles. As you can see, everything is organized alphabetically according to the title of the magazine. If I have more than one issue of a magazine, I place them in separate folders. So to give you an example, these are magazines starting with S. So I have everything written down, the name of the magazine, date of the magazine, and what's in it about Kate. For example, this Japanese magazine with her on cover, Mary of Scotland cover, Polish magazine, Sight and Sound, Belgium film magazine, another Japanese magazine, Sunday Review, which has our last interview. The bottom 2 drawers of my cupboard are filled with articles. I organize everything according to subject. So subject can be a certain movie, articles about Spencer Tracy, about certain directors, or if they don't have a particular subject, I organize according to the time period. To give you an example, this is Bringing Up Baby. So I have some general information about each movie first, and then the articles. I always mention the source if I know it. I also have a huge digital collection. Everything I have, postcards, magazines, articles, are scanned and saved to my computer. I label everything so I can easily find the things I'm looking for. Let's move on now at Kate's 1940s career. We're going back to 1942 and her second collaboration with Spencer Tracy.
After the attack on Pearl Harbor, Kate wanted to do her bit for the war effort. She had read Wiley's Keeper of the Flame and thought it would be a good vehicle for her and Spencer. George Cukor again directed the picture. The picture warned against fascist movements in the US. Apparently, Louis B. Mayer failed to see what the picture was really about when the script was read to him, and he only realized it when he saw the finished version, at which he stormed out of the movie theater. Keeper of the Flame was released at the end of 1942.
In the 1940s, Katharine Hepburn made 11 movies, and one of them, Stage Door Canteen, She only had a cameo. Out of the 10 other movies she made, 6 were with Spencer Tracy. Next up, I'm going to introduce you to one of the 4 films she made without Spencer Tracy, Dragon Seed. Let's go back to 1944.
Dragon Seed was shot in the winter of 1943 and involved the largest construction site to be set up by MGM up to that day. Kate was fascinated by the book written by Pearl S. Buck about the Japanese invasion of China, and she read it multiple times, along with other books about China during that period. Unfortunately, Dragon Seed wasn't the commercial success everyone had hoped it would be, and it couldn't match the success of The Good Earth, which was made a few years earlier and was also based on a novel by Pearl S. Buck. The issue of race was a sore point in particular.
On my left you can see several MGM press books from Kate's 1940s films, and this is my book collection, or part of my book collection I should say. The top 2 shelves all have books about Katharine Hepburn, biographies, picture books. I have almost all of them, except for a few which I don't want to own. My fellow Kate fans which will know which ones I'm talking about. And the bottom shelf has books about other actors and actresses and about Hollywood and film in general. I do have another cupboard filled with books about films, but you will see that later on in my video. I think the definitive biography of Kate remains to be written. You never know, I hope to be a part of that one day. But the 2 books I would recommend are the books she wrote herself. Those are me, stories of my life, her autobiography, and The Making of the African Queen, about her experiences filming the 1951 classic with Humphrey Bogart. Next up, we're going back to 1945 and the 3rd collaboration between Tracy and Hepburn.
Without Love was released in May 1945 and was the 3rd Tracy Hepburn collaboration. The movie was based on a play by Philip Barry, who also wrote the Philadelphia Story. Kate had starred in it a few years earlier. The play had not been a success, but Louis B. Mayer had bought the rights to the play and wanted to turn it into a film. A few elements were changed, and the role of Kitty Trimble, Quentin's on-off girlfriend, was given to Lucille Ball, who was really funny in this film. The reviews for Without Love were generally very good, and the picture was a commercial success.
We've landed in 1946 with Undercurrent, so I have a few lobby cards and a few posters. I recently bought a Belgian poster which I had never seen before, so I'm really excited about that one, and I already made some space over there. This is my display cabinet. This is actually the only space in my collection where I have a picture of myself. This is me standing in front of Katharine Hepburn's house in New York. In 2019 I was lucky enough to travel to New York, and not only did I get to go to her former home in East 49th Street, I also was able to go to the New York Public Library to go through her papers that she donated there. So there were countless articles, photos, letters, which was really a treat for me. One day I hope to be able to go to Connecticut to visit her grave, and I dream of owning one of her paintings for my collection. That will be amazing. Well, enough said about me. Let's move on now with Undercurrent.
The 1940s were the golden age of film noir, a new kind of movie which was dark and cynical. In 1946, Katharine Hepburn jumped into the unknown when she starred in Undercurrent, which balanced between psychological thriller, drama and film noir. The director was Vincente Minnelli, who became known for his musicals along with his wife Judy Garland. The film wasn't particularly successful, but remains an interesting film in Hepburn's career.
This is the second room in my collection. As you can see, I've got a little theater section here, but what I want to show you right now is my postcard collection. This is my postcard collection. I've got about 400 postcards. These are from the 1930s, so they're organized chronologically or according to a certain movie, like these are all from Little Women. Just to give you an idea.
I've also got these postcards from movies. They're postcards and little film geralds which were handed out when a certain movie came to the cinemas. At the back of my book, I've got about 100 smaller cards. So these are cards that were distributed with cigarettes, chocolate, and things like that.
I'm going to take you back now to Kate's 1940s career. We've landed in 1947, in which she made two films, The Sea of Grass and Song of Love.
The Sea of Grass had been one of Kate and Spencer's favorite novels for years. Apparently, they even used to call each other Colonel and Looty in private. The film was directed by Elia Kazan, who would become later known for movies such as On the Waterfront, A Streetcar Named Desire, and East of Eden. The Sea of Grass was Kazan's least favorite picture. He had wanted to work on location and with less glamorous costumes and sets, but that was not the way things were done at MGM at the time. The Sea of Grass wasn't released until April 1947, although it had been filmed more than a year before. It received mixed reviews, but it was the most commercially successful film of all the Tracy Hepburn collaborations at MGM.
Next up is Song of Love. As you can see, I've got this wall almost entirely covered with posters and lobby cards from Song of Love, even up to here, but you can fully see it on film. So I've got this full lobby card collection of Song of Love. I've got these Spanish lobby cards, the Belgian movie poster, advert, American poster, and that's a part of the Spanish lobby card set.
Song of Love was shot during the winter of 1946 and released in October 1947. It tells the story of composer Robert Schumann, played by Paul Henreid, and his wife Clara. The movie was directed by Clarence Brown but fared poorly. In the spring of 1947, Kate had given a speech in favor of Henry Wallace's presidential campaign. As a result, she was labeled a communist, and the movie was boycotted in different places. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about this picture is that Kate, in typical Hepburn style, insisted on playing all the piano pieces herself. Classical pianist Arthur Rubinstein, who taught her to play, was so impressed with her that he claimed only he knew the difference between him or her playing.
We've come to the part of my collection that I like best, that is my photo collection. I've got 3 of these binders. Each one can hold approximately 400 photos, so you do the math. Most photos are from the 1940s. They're all 8 by 10 inches, and I should say about 80% of them are original from the time of release.
The album I'm going to show you in detail is this one. So this is from 1945 up until 1948. So as you can see, I've got everything organized chronologically. So these are general stills from 1945. And then we have the movies. So this one is Without Love. Moving on to 1946, Undercurrent. (1947) has 2 movies, The Sea of Grass and Song of Love. This is a Spanish holder for the Spanish lobby cards. These are all from Song of Love. And the last one in this album is from 1948, and that's State of the Union. This is another part of my book collection, and here I've got this album with photos and lobby cards that are too big, that are larger than 8 by 10 inches to fit in my other folders. So for example, this is a Polish poster of the Lion in Winter. I really like this one, I like the colors. That's the unfortunate thing when you collect things, there's just too much to display everything.
Next up is 1948 with another Tracy and Hepburn movie, State of the Union.
State of the Union originally wasn't planned to be a Tracy and Hepburn picture. The Broadway play had been bought as a vehicle for Spencer and Claudette Colbert. A few days before shooting began, she argued with director Frank Capra about her working hours, and she walked out of the picture. Capra was desperate and asked Spencer whether he knew any actresses. Kate agreed to do it and worked with a costume designer all weekend, so she would be able to start shooting on Monday. There was some tension on the set between Kate and Adolphe Manjou, who had named names at the hearings of the House Committee on Un-American Activities. But they both acted as professionals and finished their scenes together. Apparently, President Truman loved the film, even though there was some criticism of him. State of the Union was released in April 1948.
We've come to the end of the 1940s with Adam's Rib. These are French lobby cards from that movie. If you haven't watched any of the Tracy and Hepburn movies yet, I would strongly suggest to start with this one. It's a really funny comedy, a battle of the sexes, perfectly written, very funny.
Adam's Rib was written by husband and wife Carson Kanan and Ruth Gordon. Both were very good friends of Kate and Spencer, and they designed the characters of Adam and Amanda to mirror their off-screen relationship. George Cukor directed this battle of the sexes. The movie was released in November 1949. Cole Porter wrote the song Farewell Amanda especially for the movie. Adam's Rib was also an important movie in Judy Holliday's career. Kate and Cukor did everything they could to get Judy the part in Born Yesterday, filming a lot of her scenes in Adam's Rib in close-up or with the focus on her. Adam's Rib was an enormous success, and up to this day it's the most well-known and best-loved Tracy and Hepburn picture.
What I want to show you next is my film program collection. So these film programs are typically something European. I haven't been able to find any American film programs. They're mostly in German or in French, but I do have a few from Japan and other countries too.
I've got these 3 binders with movie programs. So the first one is from the 1930s. Has programs from Little Women, Break of Hearts, Mary of Scotland, Bringing a Baby, just to give you an example, this is one from Alice Adams, Le Film Complet. This is one from France. So this has the full story of the movie and also pictures from the movie. Most of them are like 16 or 20 pages. This is one that has programs from the 1940s. Woman of the Year, German, Polish, Japanese, German, Keeper of the Flame, Dragon Seed, Undercurrent, French one, German, Italian, this is also one from Undercurrent. This is a Danish program. And the last binder is from the 1950s onwards. So it has programs from the African Queen, Summertime, The Lion in Winter, The Rainmaker. Up until the 1980s, these programs were released. So the last one I've got is from On Golden Pond from 1981. We've come to the end of the 1940s and my overview of Kate's career. Let's move on now to 1951, in which she made one of her best-known films, The African Queen. In 1951, Katharine Hepburn exchanged Spencer Tracy for Humphrey Bogart and Hollywood for Africa. The shooting of The African Queen was quite troublesome. There were script problems, almost everyone fell ill, and director John Huston preferred to go hunting. The making of The African Queen is a story in itself. I strongly recommend the book that Kate wrote about it, called The Making of the African Queen, or How I Went to Africa with Bogart, Bacall and Huston and Almost Lost My Mind. The picture was released in December 1951 and it earned Kate an Oscar nomination for Best Actress, her first since Woman of the Year. It also won Humphrey Bogart his only Oscar. Kate's first color film was an immense success and earned her rave reviews. Charlie and Rosie really are an unforgettable pair. I've got the French movie poster and puzzle form from The African Queen, these American lobby cards, this beautiful collector's box, and of course this book which I already mentioned, which really is a must-read and chronicles the making of The African Queen as told by Katharine Hepburn. An essential part of my collection is of course my movie collection. I've got all of Kate's movies from her first one, A Bill of Divorcement in 1932, up until her last one, One Christmas from 1994. These are all radio plays and audiobooks, and over here I've got DVDs which I compiled myself. So these contain documentaries, biographies, interviews with other actors and things like that. One thing I can't show you is my digital collection. I've got a huge digital collection with tens of thousands of pictures, articles and things like that. I frequently browse newspaper and photo archives to find out as much as I can, because I really think that research is the key to finding out the truth, and I think that some biographers didn't do that enough in recent years. Well, we've come to the end of the tour of my collection, but of course Katharine Hepburn's career didn't end in 1951. She would go on to make movies for 40 more years and win 3 more Oscars, for Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, The Lion in Winter and On Golden Pond, bringing her total to 4, which is still a record today. In her 60s and 70s, she made her first movies with legends such as John Wayne, Laurence Olivier, Henry Fonda and Peter O'Toole. Even more than 100 years after her birth and almost 20 years after she passed away, Katharine Hepburn is still an inspiration to many people. An actress, an icon, her legacy is undeniable. What she left us with is a unique way of life, style and personality. She truly was one of a kind. Of course, her greatest legacy are her movies. Adjusting Her Stocking in Woman of the Year, being knocked over by Cary Grant in The Philadelphia Story, Facing the Rapids in The African Queen, or Listening to the Loons in On Golden Pond, they are all unforgettable moments which we can luckily watch over and over again. Thank you, Kate. I hope you enjoyed this video in which I wanted to give you a presentation of my collection, an overview of Kate's 1940s career, and of course pay tribute to this incredible woman. Thank you very much for watching, and of course feel free to share your thoughts. Thank you everyone, bye!